Hey everyone, welcome over to this meetup. So, just in case you don't know who I am Mohammad Ali Tariq, Community Lead Figma Lahore, and currently Data Analyst at Keep Trucking and also Connect Process at CMX Lahore Chapter. Figma community is a public space for people to connect around design world. And our today's guest is Chris Ling, and it's our first meetup, virtual meetup. And Chris Ling is a UX and product designer with a background in bioengineering and computer engineering, and she is from California, and recently she joined Electronic Arts. And outside of work, she builds online communities, grow her art business, and is active on social media. She created a community that's called Design Buddies, and just in 6 weeks, our 1,600 members, and her art business, Candy Leaf Designs. She designed merchandise and different tables at conventions as well as manage an online shop. So welcome, Grace Singh.
Thank you. Should I get started?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Good evening or morning or afternoon. Hope you're all doing well. Today, I'll be talking about learning design from an unconventional background. I've actually learned design in about 8 months by spending $0 and landing an internship at Electronic Arts as a UX designer. So feel free to share in the comments what time it is where you're at, and kind of connect with other people too. It's currently 9 p.m. in San Jose. Cool. So a little bit about myself. I am an incoming UX designer at Electronic Arts, working on a player experience team. I'm currently a computer science and engineering graduate student at Santa Clara University in California, the San Francisco Bay Area. I graduated my bachelor's last year studying bioengineering pre-med. For fun, I have a lot of side hustles. I have my own art business where I table at conventions. I also really do a lot of social media and blogging. And during quarantine, I created Design Buddies, an inclusive design community that I will be going over next, or going over throughout the presentation. So a little bit about the structure of this slideshow today. I'll first be going over kind of like struggles I did and struggles I had, a little background about myself. I'll be going over some of the projects I did to help me land an internship at EA with just 8 months of experience. I also go over my internship search and how I network my way to get an internship. And fun fact, I never applied to EA. I got it through networking, and I'll be going over my tips and how I got that. Later, I'll be going over some resources that helped me personally, and you can screenshot anything you want, and later some question and answers. Cool. So I'll be going over some introductions and really focusing on the lessons I've learned from these life experiences I had that led me to design. So the blue is kind of like my career path journey, and the green is the side hustles I started along the way. So when I was growing up, I grew up in Silicon Valley, California, where there's a lot of tech companies headquartered here. However, I saw myself as more of an artist. I dreamed of becoming an anime artist, working in Japan, writing manga. I also played a lot of games. In middle school and high school, I started running cross country and track, and I started a blog about it. I actually went through a lot of adversity through being bullied and overcoming that through running. And I talked about that on my social media and blogging, and it went viral a few times on Tumblr. So that's kind of how I started my side hustles, which later led to sponsored posts and brand collaborations too when I was in high school. So I was about 16, 17 years old that time. Through my running experience, I've found a lot of interest in human biology. So I came into college as a bioengineering pre-med major. My goal coming into college was to become a neurosurgeon with an MD PhD, exploring the relationship between neuroscience and artificial intelligence and how that relates to reducing pain and running, because I wanted to learn biology to biohack myself to run faster. Also, with both parents having a PhD, since I was 4 years old, they said that I was destined to get a PhD. So I kind of went on that path without really knowing what a PhD was. And kind of halfway through college, I decided to not pursue bioengineering pre-med anymore, because I was also working in research labs. I was looking forward for lab to end, because I wasn't enjoying the work I was doing. Even though I was getting all these awards, I still wasn't happy with it. So I decided to quit all that and pursue game design and computer science as a VR lab opened up at Santa Clara. And I kind of got into that field. And after I graduated college, between college and grad school was kind of last summer, June 2019, I started an art business called Candy Leaf Designs, where I make merchandise to table at conventions. Later, I'll be talking more about this too, but taught me a lot of business skills, and I learned a lot about UX through that as well. And kind of follow my childhood dream about becoming an animated artist. So if you have like a dream you want to pursue, don't be afraid to go after that. No matter what stage you are at your life, it's never too late. I decided to step away from VR and game design because I felt like it was kind of niche. And as a new grad, I didn't see a lot of jobs lined up for that field. So I kind of explored other fields as well, which led me to UI, UX, and product design. I was also really interested in design for a while, but I was kind of afraid to start because I feel like designers on the internet, they're really experts in their field from what I saw. And I was really intimidated to start. And then it's not until I found like students who design a product design class to learn the fundamentals that I learned design. And through that inspired me to start Design Buddies. Design Buddies was started during quarantine about 2 months ago. It's an inclusive design community for designers from all levels to connect and share resources and get critique on their work. And it's been almost 2 months, and we have nearly 2,000 members as of tonight in Design Buddies. So I'll talk about some of the struggles I had and the lessons I learned through that, and which helps me today as a UX designer. So when I graduated with my bioengineering degree, it was in June 2019, I felt really lost. I really wanted to pursue games, design. I wasn't actually really sure. However, I had some professors who were discouraging. They told me, don't follow your passion, follow your degree, because your degree should be your career. And that was hard for me coming as a young professional, a young college graduate, listening to these experts in their field. Oftentimes these are department chairs, people who've been doing this for 20 years, telling me how I'm wrong, how I shouldn't pursue design, how I should be following my degree. And I just learned that I shouldn't be listening to them after a while. I should really follow what I want to do because they don't know me better than I know myself. I also dealt with some abusive startups and freelance clients. I learned a lot about pricing myself, valuing my work through those experiences. I also had a lot of test anxiety and imposter syndrome. A lot of people ask me why I'm doing computer science and engineering, if I'm doing UX design. Well, it's because I also wanted to improve my technical skills, but also because I was kind of afraid of the unknown. I wanted to continue school because it had a structure in my life. And I didn't pursue other grad schools because of the GRE. The GRE is a standardized test used in America for almost all grad schools. And my score was so low because these tests, they test you on skills you don't use in real life, such as memorizing hard vocabulary. And my score was so low that I was afraid to submit these scores and spend hundreds and thousands of dollars applying when I thought that my score would throw my application in the trash, because that's the first thing a lot of schools look at. So that's kind of what turned down my path, because the standardized testing really affected me a lot, and I felt bad for a long time. But I realized that I shouldn't hold myself too hard for that. During fall quarter, I was also harassed multiple times in the quarter through a professor. He was asking me a lot of personal questions, where I live, following me, stalking me, shaming me from the whole class, really, really uncomfortable, bad things. And I was just in a bad place because after speaking up about what I went through with my professor, I was told that my feelings were not valid. So, which leads me to lessons I've learned. So these are some takeaways of some of the struggles I had, which also applies to my career today as a UX designer. Don't listen to anyone who tells you can't accomplish something. Your success follows your passion, and no one knows you better than you do. You really need to value your work. Do not charge less than minimum wage. I used to charge less than minimum wage. Once I charged higher, I got better quality clients because they know the work and effort that takes the creatives. They respect their time. Also, speak up, protect others. Don't be afraid to reach out. A lot of times people don't want to speak up, but pro tip, there's this office called the Title IX office, at least in colleges in America, where you can report things like sexual harassment, discrimination, racism, and by law, they're required to do something. So if no one tells you about it, it's called the Title IX office that you can go to. So going back to my story, my past life, I call it my past life because it's what I want to do after my undergraduate studies. I want to be a game designer and developer. I created Selfie, a biology-inspired VR game. I interned at Intuitive Surgical. So Intuitive Surgical is a robotic surgery company. How many of you guys heard of Intuitive Surgical or seen that video of a robot sewing together a grape? That robot is called Da Vinci. It's a robotic assisted surgeon where people can do surgery on a robot to increase precision. So I worked there as a virtual reality robotic surgery game developer intern, and I made games to train surgeons to do surgery. It was a really amazing experience, and I learned a lot about corporate culture and the medical devices industry and how it's like having a work-life balance. I didn't go back because they didn't have funding for me, for the team, but I still learned a lot and made wonderful connections there. I also interned at Girls Make Games. I mentored middle school and high school girls as a lead Unity instructor to teach them and mentor them to make games. So I kind of was involved in the gaming and medical devices industry before deciding to go into UI, UX, and product design. And this is Selfie. How many of you like biology? So this is inside the plant cell, inside the chloroplast, which is the organelle or the feature in the plant cells that does photosynthesis. So I created a game to gamify biology because I felt like a lot of my biology education wasn't very interactive. So I created a virtual world for people to have fun and learn in. So now I'll talk about some of the projects I did. And these are the projects that ultimately led me to my internship and my interviews. So I have 3 different types of projects. The first one being design projects, kind of like general case studies for product design interviews, some around business and creating Design Buddies community. I learned a lot through that, which I'll be emphasizing throughout this presentation. So my current life, which is end of 2019 to right now, is doing UX design. And how I started UX design, I did these items on the screen. It was a long journey of reaching out to people, seeking out opportunities outside my school. It's strongly self-guided, self-taught. People will often ask me, how did you learn product design? Well, for me, I tried to learn product design for a while, but I feel like it was really intimidating. There's so much information out there. And I randomly came across this class called Students Who Design on a Facebook group. And I signed up for it. It was like this 10-week course that really guided me through the whole design process and took me through a project. And I later did hackathons, design challenges, and took up freelance projects with startups to further increase my design skills and working on products that ship. I also run my business and community on the side as well. So for anyone looking to think about what projects they're doing to do internships, so quick question, what kind of stage of your career are you at? Are you looking for design internships? Are you looking for full-time jobs? Whether it's design internships or full-time jobs for your interviews, hiring managers, you want to focus on products that ship because that way you can collect post-launch metrics and demonstrate how you iterate the product and keep improving the product based on those metrics. So Students Who Design, not sponsored, but this course changed my life. It was a 10-week live online class where I had live instructor feedback. It helped me demystify all these resources available on the internet and gave me a lot of career help and mentorship as well. So it's called Students Who Design. If anyone wants to check it out, it's free too. And I made this project called Discord. I made a case study on Discord where so how many of you guys use Discord? Cool. So Discord is like this messaging app similar to Slack. And through this project, I did a lot of user research, market research, found pain points amongst the users of Discord and designed a solution through this 10 weeks. And this is what I presented on my interview with EA to land my internship. The case study is also on my portfolio, but I won't be going over that now. I also worked on hackathons. Another example of project I did, it's called Yeats. It's a web scraping tool to find the cheap groceries on around you. It scrapes the web to find local cheap groceries because you yell yeet when you find low-cost eats. So that's what the name is inspired by. And lastly, another hackathon project I did was Linked Up. It's a Chrome extension, like a customer relationship management, to keep track of your connections on LinkedIn. It's also available in the Chrome store if you want to check that out too. I designed it with a team. And I also did daily UI challenges. A lot of times in UX, people kind of turn away from doing these daily UI challenges. However, after doing a lot of informational interviews with hiring managers in UX design, I realized that visual design is actually very important because these hiring managers only spend 30 seconds to skim through a portfolio. So it's really important to have captivating visuals that capture their attention. Otherwise, they will skim through it. And daily UI challenges, personally for me, is how I got better at visual design. I look at examples on Dribbble, be inspired, and try to create something of my own through a prompt I was mailed every day through daily UI challenges. It was free, and people share a lot on Discord. And through these design projects, I done a lot I didn't show, but I learned a lot of lessons through that, mostly involving the users at every step of the way, never making assumptions. It's about designing for the whole population, not just yourself. So be aware of, don't be subjective, and make sure you back your data with metrics. And going to metrics, it's really important to have metrics before starting. Like, think about how you want to measure success of your project, because therefore you'll establish clear goals and will provide value for any stakeholders or customers who will later look at your work and maybe consider investing in it or purchasing it. It's also important to work on a team. That way you can have communication and bounce off ideas, so you're not designing in a silo or vacuum. As UX design, product design, it's a very highly collaborative experience. And most important, keep learning. As technology advances, as human advance, there's always these new trends. And in order to keep up, you have to be aware of them. And how I like to keep learning is just read Medium articles. There's this Medium, I guess, account called UX Collective. And I also like to watch a lot of YouTube tutorials, go to design conferences. If you guys like learning about UX, feel free to share any resources you find in the chat as well about UX and learning UX. So briefly go over our business. Mostly the main lessons: don't be afraid to chase your childhood dreams. If you ever want to be an artist, don't be afraid to start your own business. It's a very fun, rewarding experience. Candy Designs is inspired by animals, desserts, and science, and I make little pins, charms, and stickers. And this is my banner. It's a candy-shaped bunny with a leaf on it. And as an illustrator, I also have this in my portfolio. A lot of times, UX designers, the hiring managers will like that as well, because I not only know UX, but I also know visual design and illustrations as well, which can be an important skill depending on what your project is when you're working. And also table the anime convention. So how many of you guys like going to anime conventions? Cool. And these are some of the pins I made: Lychee Cat and Dongo Cat. And some of the charms I made too, inspired by animals and desserts like the Boba Bunny. So I learned a lot of lessons through starting a business that applies to UX design. The first one is marketing and understanding customers, kind of like understanding trends in industry. For example, before anime conventions, I would always look up what's the most popular anime in season and watch the trailers of those. Because that way I would be able to connect with my customers, compliment them on their cosplay, ask them, how do you like this anime? Like, what do you think of this show? Or how did you make your costume? And by establishing authentic connections with my customers, it'll help me in my business as well, and also make more friends and more connections. And networking with customers, networking with other artists, networking with other artists to share Airbnbs and traveling conventions, to share rides, split costs of tabling, networking with industries, and networking with other companies as well, because I also do collaborations with local cafes and design their merch as well. So networking also important within the job search, also when starting your own business. How many of you guys are interested in starting your own business? Cool. So another important skill I learned through business that applies to UX is customer service, communication, making sure you really understand the customer and designing to serve them. And when you serve the customer, you'll reach your business goals, because these customers bring you your revenue. So it's really important to stay connected through communication, social media. Also outline your future plans, like future features, new products launched, to keep them wondering and curious and coming back to your shop and looking for more, and keep them engaged in the loop. And they'll tell your friends, and they'll get excited to see new products being launched. So another project I worked on that I started about less than 2 months ago, it's Design Buddies. I was motivated to start this because I was starting out design. I was part of some design communities online. From my experience, it felt like there's a lot of senior designers on there, and I was kind of afraid of talking because I was so new to this. I was afraid of sharing my work, getting feedback. I was afraid to ask questions because I'm afraid to come off as not educated. So I create design communities where any designer of any level can come in, network, get help, ask questions, and make friends. And so we have nearly 2,000 members in this 2 months on Discord, which is amazing. We have people ranging from students to over 10 years of industry experience, helping each other out, which is pretty amazing. We also host events, networking, partnership with companies, speaker series, and mentorship. And this is our link to join. So how many of you guys want to join Design Buddies? Cool. So we also have meetups on Figma. I'm a huge fan of Figma. It's the first prototyping tool I use, and I love their collaboration. This is not sponsored by Figma. I just love their tool. And we have Figma remix file meetups, so everyone can make their own little card for icebreakers and design their own Animal Crossing character and other fun stuff together and during meetups. So that's kind of how I like to plan my meetups and structure them. So they're different from a lot of other types of meetups. So I learned a lot of lessons from community management that applies to UX design. Inclusiveness and diversity are also really important when it comes to designing for accessibility, but also maintaining a growing and safe community. It's important to establish ground rules to make sure that the community is a safe space. For example, if someone makes anyone feel uncomfortable, I would ban them. I have banned people from doing scamming, making people feel uncomfortable. So it's really important to make sure that you're available as a community leader to make sure that there's no conflict or anything negative going on. Teamwork is also really important. I have a team of 8 admins who help me out, moderate, design the website, outreach, and market. So I can't run. It's really hard to run 2,000 people by myself, especially with a full-time job, full-time student, entrepreneur. So I have a wonderful team of 8 other admins to help me out as well. And it's important to really know your target demographic and have a mission statement. So you can design events, kind of like a persona in UX design. So you can design events that suit them, suit their needs, suit their wants, and help them feel engaged and welcome. And it's also important to be engaged with the community, have meetups, like events, to help people connect with each other, network with each other, because it's really a community where people can just get to know each other. It's space where people can find other designers and other things in common, make friends. We also have talks and collaborations, so we can partner with other companies, other organizations, other communities to help each other out as well, and further increase our network, and having talks to educate people and help them learn. Free talks. I also listen to a lot of user feedback. I have surveys where people can input suggestions. We're listening to them as well, and also having goals. Like we have a merch store coming up, website coming up, kind of keeping people always looking forward to something. Kind of like how I said during the lessons I learned from business. So next, I will go into my internship process, especially stressing on these lessons I learned and fun. And I also got my internship at EA without applying, which I will be going over in the next section as well. But before going on, these are the projects I've kind of done for my internship search. I did a lot, but I also learned a lot along the way. But most likely, case studies, you only really need 2 case studies on your portfolio, just so you don't feel like I said a lot of things. So my internship process started January 2020, relatively late compared to other tech companies. Usually people apply for tech companies back in the fall. However, I felt like I was kind of going through a rough time and not really sure what I want to do and just building up my portfolio. So I started in January. I sent out 26 applications, got ghosted by 20 people. Ghosted meaning my application just got lost, and the position got filled without me hearing back. So it's actually pretty tough world out there. But for me, I actually applied to pretty large companies, so these numbers are kind of expected as well. because companies like Facebook and Google, they get millions of applicants every year. And through the rejections I got from my interviews, I always ask for feedback. The feedback I got was, one of them is, I don't play enough first-person shooters. As a sheltered kid, I couldn't do much about this. Another interesting question I got that was a curveball that really threw me off in final round interview was for an app critique interview. And app critique interviews are kind of you and the interviewer walk through an app and you comment on the visual design, the interaction design, how that relates to business goals. And the question I got asked was, can you redesign the logo of Venmo? That question threw me off because it seemed like out of the blue, like it's something for like a brand designer, like a graphic designer to tackle, not a product designer. So the mistake I made was I said the first answer that came up in my head. I just started jumping right into the conclusion, making assumptions. So what I said was, since Venmo is in America, is an app for requesting money, it reduces friction of asking people for money. We can just request people on an app. So I said, why not design a logo where two people are shaking hands? And immediately that interviewer was like, so what are the pros and cons of this? And immediately I already knew in my head that it was a bad choice. I knew it wasn't scalable. I knew I didn't ask enough questions. I made too many assumptions. So that question, it was being discussed for the first 20 minutes of my 45-minute interview. And later I realized I finally got that rejection because I feel like it was that question because I could see the look by the interviewer's face that it wasn't going well. And I actually discussed this question during my informational interviews while I was networking. I discussed with other design directors, senior managers in industry. They gave me this tip to never make assumptions, but ask, what is the business goal or the user experience goal of redesigning the Venmo? Taking a pause and breaking down, asking questions to the interviewer to really understand what they're trying to find out about yourself and your design thinking. So that's kind of like a tip I learned. If you don't understand something, go back to the problem you're trying to solve. Ask for the goals. And these are some interview tips that helped me when I was going through these types of interviews. Types of interviews I've been through are the behavior ones, kind of like tell me about yourself. And for my best advice is to focus on storytelling in your process. Don't throw in too many metrics. Focus on like how you got there. And I also created a doc of frequently asked questions, kind of like tell me about yourself, what are your strengths and weaknesses, tell me about the time you accomplished something you're proud of, tell me about a conflict, and just like have these ready because these questions you will be expected to have on the dot. You won't have time to think. So it's good to just kind of do some self-reflection and kind of have an idea. And what I like to do during virtual interviews is like to split screen. So one screen is Zoom, one screen is my document of the FAQs. So I have reference to them at all times. So in case I get stumbled or I feel too nervous, I have my outlined points of all the commonly asked questions. I can just nail them down, but also make sure to sound authentic. And also what you can do to go the extra mile is to relate the company culture to your core values. So for example, you can do a Google search like company name and then core values and then see like, oh, diversity, you can relate diversity to your life and maybe talk about some extracurricular you did relating to diversity. But also make sure don't be cheesy. Don't read like line by line. Don't sound rehearsed. Sound genuine. Just really find the core values that stick out to you and relate your experiences to those core values. And the next type of interview is the portfolio review. These portfolio reviews are like probably what you generally always get at least one portfolio review for an internship application. I'm not too sure about full-time because I'm still a student. I haven't applied to those yet. But for these portfolio reviews, this is like the bulk of the time people spend preparing for. And you normally have to prepare at least 2 case studies. Most of the times you only have time to run through one, but just have 2 or 3 just in case. And when you're doing these case studies, make sure you're not reading off your website or the design case study. Make sure you prepare slides to present as well, and make sure to be mindful of your the time as well. So don't make it too long. And also keep asking interviewer questions like, does this answer your question? Like if they ask you a question, you answer it, you can ask them, does this answer your question? And sometimes they might ask you to elaborate more. And while doing that, while kind of going through these interviews, I realized it's really important to keep going back to the problem and really justifying your design decisions, whether it's visual design, interaction design, to those problems being solved. So focusing on storytelling as well. And for app critiques, I briefly went over this, but you basically sit down with another interviewer, go through an app, you both on your phone, and just going through the app together, and they will ask you any question about the app, such as, why do you think Snapchat uses these like swiping features? Why not just like buttons and stuff? And you really had to go in and explain like, what's the business purpose? Like, well, the business purpose is because Snapchat's target demographic is like Gen Z, middle schoolers, very young, like younger audience, and these people are more used to these interactions and like are more used to adapting to them. So just kind of like justify these like app decisions based on like the business goals, their target demographic, and their revenue stream, but just relate to anything with their overall goal and mission as a company as well, to show that you understand the overall goal, but also understand the nitty-gritty details like visual design, like why this color, why this interaction. Because as a product and UX designer, it's really important to know both the details as well as the overall business goals, and to keep going back to them as well, because it's a very interdisciplinary field. The last type of interview is design challenge. This is a bit more rare. I've only done one, but essentially the recruiter will give you like a design challenge to do, like whether it's like designing an app or designing anything, given a specific amount of time. So it's kind of like a mini case study, but packed into about 1 week or 3 days. So it really depends on the company itself. And my tip would be to Google that company name and click and like UX design intern and a design challenge. And a lot of people read Medium articles about their experience as well. On Medium, it's a great resource because people share a lot of their interview experience. So if you ever have an interview coming up, just Google or go on Medium, say company name, UX design interview, product design interview, or lessons learned. And then you'll see like kind of what helped other people as well for that specific company. Glassdoor is also another place for frequently asked questions during interviews. So Glassdoor, Medium, just doing simple Google search, just asking questions. And also reaching out to your connections who might know someone who works there or who works at that company, and ask them how they landed their internship. Would ask them what helped them stand out. What I've also done is I reached out to people who worked at companies I was interviewing with on LinkedIn and asked them about like kind of like the interview process, and asked them to talk about themselves and like learn what made them stand out and help them get the job, and later keep these in mind when I was doing my interview. So reach out on LinkedIn, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. The worst thing they say is no. And again, focus on, if you ever get lost in your explanation, just focus on a story and keep relating each design decision to the main problem, whether it's the user experience problem, the business problem, just keep relating back to the problem. And next, I'll talk about networking. So networking is not about selling yourself, it's to get to know others and their story and making a genuine connection. It's like making friends. Don't ask for a job, it's to get to know others. And fun fact, I got my internship at EA without applying. I got it through networking. And let me show you how I got it. So how many of you guys feel like intimidated when you see the word networking? Like when I was just a few years ago, I felt really intimidated because it sounded like some kind of like mysterious thing where I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to talk to these professionals. It's scary. Well, throughout the years, I had a lot of trial and errors, and this is what it boils down to. So how to process, this is on LinkedIn. Make sure you have a complete profile and you engage with the community. Think of this as a resume. When you reach out to people, they will look at your profile and like your engagement and decide whether they want to talk to you. It's kind of like a resume. After you're done. So now I'll be kind of going over that. So it's really important to have a complete LinkedIn profile. And how you know that is you have this all-star status on LinkedIn, which will tell you if it's complete. Purpose to get noticed. And it's also important to engage with the community. As I feel like in this day and age, people have been posting a lot more on LinkedIn and emphasizing on personal branding. Shout out to Juan Salting for inspiring me to start doing personal branding, posting more on LinkedIn. I started posting a lot of story times, lessons I learned. I like to provide content that's helpful for users, not just about me, but what I learned from my story and how I can give back and give people valuable content. And this is how I went viral. I shared very stories of really negative experiences I had, but I also emphasize on what I learned from it. And in return, a lot of people reached out to me saying they went through the same thing, and now we're like really good friends, and because we connected on something really specific on a deep level. And they also really appreciate it, and I get a lot of like comments and new connections. Fun fact, I started posting on LinkedIn at least twice a week. I grew my following to over 1,000 in the span of 3 weeks on LinkedIn by just posting stories and lessons learned. So it's another great way if you want to become a LinkedIn influencer, post story times and lessons you learn. For me, there's other ways to do it. Some people also post about some interesting books they read, just kind of giving people the highlights of what they read. Also some goals in your progress. Your portfolio works. You don't have to treat it as like a networking platform. You can also treat it as a showcasing platform, because when I posted my portfolio works, that's how I landed my freelance jobs and more projects that people reaching out to me for paid work. So show your work. Clients will come to you. And some people also use emojis in their name and personal hashtags. I also see a lot of the I'm excited to announce posts. And one tip for these posts is like share what you learned, not just, oh, I just like got this internship here. Like I'm so happy, but also post, this will be really helpful for people trying to apply too, and giving value to users and just giving back to the community too. Just post like how you got there and the lessons you learned through that interview process. Another thing to do is commenting and messaging, interacting with other people and getting on people's radars. And the third thing is, once you've done all that, you can reach out to people. Again, the goal is to learn about your story. Don't sell yourself. When you reach out to people, it's important to include a personalized message, so you can find some common ground, and so some people won't be confused or ask, why is this person talking to me? So what I like to do, this is the message I sent to design directors that helped me ultimately land my UX design internship at EA. This is a fake name. Leaf is just an arbitrary name, not a real person. But I just kind of explain how I'm a grad student. And pro tip, if you're a student, people would want to help you more. So if you're a student, really emphasize that in like the first sentence you say, and your student and you like your goal and like what you want to get out of this, because these people are really busy. Very keep it short and sweet, and save most of your talking to the phone call. And again, people love talking about themselves, so just say like you want to learn about their story, because if you listen to their story, you'll learn a lot about the industry and how they got to where they are, so I can apply it to your life as well. It's all about making a genuine connection and get to know someone who may be a role model. In informational interviewing, when I had my first informational interview, I was very nervous because I was talking to a product design director, and it seemed like she was really high above me. But these people are human too. You can treat them like, just talk to them like a friend and just go with the flow. And I could start off with like kind of like ask them to tell me about themselves and getting to know their story. And through listening to their story, I would just find things in common, connect, ask questions, and I would ask like, I see like specific questions, like I see that we both like ran cross country and track. Like, how did these things you learned from running that helps you as a UX design director today? And generally, I like to go unscripted and just kind of bounce off things we have in common. And when they asked me to share my story, I would also emphasize more on the things we both have in common, so we can foster deeper connection and be better friends. And if you get stuck, I just have questions like, what are your favorite projects and lessons learned? And where does your design inspiration come from? And it's important to keep following up, because once you establish a genuine connection, you can keep in touch like every few months. And later, if you see a job opening, they will most likely want to help you get a referral, whether it's like an internal referral that can introduce you directly to the hiring manager. You also learn a lot through knowing their story. So it's a win-win situation, both of you. And often like people wonder like, how can like a student possibly help them? Well, after talking to, I did over 30 informational interviews, they just want to say you succeed and know that they helped someone. They just like want to give back, especially in a design director, design manager position. They just want to give back to the community. And if you keep following up with them, telling them, oh, I landed this internship, oh, I made this cool project, thanks for your help, they will feel really happy. So that's how you can give back to them. And again, don't sell yourself. And I learned a lot through these information interviews. I was so nervous about asking them, but just don't be afraid to ask. People love talking about themselves. And also be clear about your intention. Once they accept your connection request and respond, make sure to say that I would love to do an information sit down for 30 minutes on a phone or Zoom call with you, just to learn about your stories. Make sure you set a time and like the purpose of that meeting, because these are very, very busy people, and keep your messages short. Don't ask for a job on the first call. That looks very bad. It seems like you're using someone. I personally had people ask me. So for fun fact, I actually posted how I got my internship at EA last week, and I already had 5 people DMing me about referrals. So do not do that. It doesn't feel good. And it makes people feel used, like not a genuine relationship. So don't ask for a job. Sometimes the job won't ever come up. Sometimes it will. And do follow up, like after the meeting, like maybe like right after or a few hours after, send them a thank you note. Like, thank you for your time. I learned this and this from you. Hope to stay in touch. And every few months, follow up with them. Like, this is what I've been up to. Really appreciate talking to you as well. These are the resources you gave me, and this is what I've done with them. And going back to networking, these are kind of the places where I found people to network with. Like conferences like Remote Design Week. There's like Facebook groups, Discord groups like Design Buddies, Slack groups, Friends of Figma, Hexagon, meetup.com. There's a bunch of other like focus groups out there as well that I found a lot of friends in and a lot of mentors in there too. And lastly, I'll talk about some resources and just some fun things. So these are the, like, if you can screenshot this if you want to, but these are kind of compilations of different resources like podcasts, books, tools, free illustrations. Yeah, so in different Slack communities as well for design. So I can check these out, and they're really comprehensive, and you can really find anything on here. And applications, I love Figma for prototyping, and there's like this fun community around Figma. This is what I love about Figma, because it's so community driven. There's a Notion for organization, basically replacing Notion with all my notes now. Miro for brainstorming, it's like a real-time whiteboard, and Discord for team communication because it does not have a messaging limit like Slack. But Slack is also great for like more professional vibe as well. And I'd also like to share some of the life lessons I've learned. I've been through a lot of different experiences, and the most important thing is to don't be afraid to take risks. Like, the worst thing can happen is fail, but there's a learning opportunity. And don't let anyone stop you from taking these risks, because they might be experts in their field, so you might feel like you have to listen to them. But they're not an expert in your field, so you know yourself better than them. Most important lesson is balance is essential for long-term success. I learned this the hard way because during my undergrad, I was focusing so much on getting good grades. I was studying up to 12 hours a day in the library just to try to get the best grades I can. But I sacrificed my mental health, sleep, social life, hobbies, passions, just for my grades. So I recommend do something that makes you happy every day. Life is not worth living if you're not enjoying it. So just do something, whether it's 10 minutes, draw for 10 minutes, talk to a friend, go to an event, go get boba with a friend every day. Any one of these things, self-care is really important to make sure you are not burning out and being happy and keep achieving more. So that concludes my presentation. Feel free to connect with me on any of my social media platforms, and I'll be welcoming any questions now.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Oh,
It was a very interesting and amazing session.
Thank
And
you.
now I inviting Uzair Khan for the proceed further about Q&A session.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, this
Hello.
is Uzair. How are you, Grace?
I'm doing well.
Actually, okay, perfect. So my name is Uzair. I am from CMX Lahore community. And Grace, thank you so much for sharing your incredible experience with us. And we really thank you for your time today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so our community really admires your leaders like you, and I hope to see you in the future as well for our meetup and our community services. So
Thank you.
about our CMX community, Lahore chapter. So we are actually collaborating with Figma as well right now. Ali, thank you for your services, for your community services. We really admire leaders like you as well. So today people actually are looking for more than just a product, as you know. I mean, they're looking for a sense of shared identity and belonging. They want to contribute to and be a part of something that they care about. So if you're interested in our community, if anyone of you here would like to be part of our team, you can email us at figmalahore.pk@gmail.com. And as Grace said, so let's move on with the Q&A. If you have any questions, you can mention those questions at the live comment section, and we'll try our best to answer your question as clearly as possible.
So I have a question from Grace.
Yeah.
Which field is better, UI or UX? मतलब UI is a different field, but which is better?
Better as in more jobs or better as in like a better experience?
Experience.
Experience, yeah. So UI is user interface, UX is user experience, and UI is more how things look like. And I was actually talking to some of my friends today who are in UX boot camps, and they had a choice between UI UX. I kind of chose UX because it seemed more like design theory and a lot of things that I can't learn on my own. And UI, it's like focuses more on visual design. I wouldn't say one is better than the other because both are equally important to help each other balance out. But UI just focuses more on the visuals. And I heard from talking to my friends, it's easier to learn on your own. And for me, I kind of did both at the same time through my daily UI challenges. And it's really important to kind of, for marketing purposes, to have really nice looking interfaces, but also nice user experiences, because that's how you get users to use the products and be satisfied with it as well and end up getting more money. So both are equally important, and I guess better to learn. I would say UX because if you have a strong visual sense, you could pick up UI at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Which field we should start in from? मतलब UI or UX?
To start from, I would
Okay.
say UX because it's kind of like the whole process, because when you do UX, you kind of understand the whole picture, and then you can kind of decide which one you want to focus on, because UX can be UX research, UX design, UI, visual design, interaction design. There's all these different like branches of UX. It's really interdisciplinary. So it's great to start with the fundamentals and kind of trying everything out before deciding what you want to branch off as.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so I would like to ask, I mean, could you elaborate the relation between UI and UX?
Yeah, so UX is kind of like the skeleton. I guess like human body example, UX is kind of like the skeleton, how things work as a system, and UI is how it looks like, kind of like a skin. So that's kind of how they relate. Like UX is the backbone, and UI is how it looks like to the customer. And UX is how things work, and UX is how things work, and UI is how things look.
Awesome. Okay, so actually we have another question from Muhammad Abdullah. He says, how would I decide which features to add to product when we're working on a UX project?
Yeah, so it's a lot to do with metrics. You have to have data. So before you start the project, before you start sketching or whiteboarding or brainstorming anything, it's really important to understand the problem you're trying to solve. And by understanding the problem, you can do a lot of user research interviews to interview stakeholders to see what problems they experience. Also doing market research to understand what solutions of that problem are currently out there. And kind of brainstorming and seeing what you gather from these results when brainstorming solutions to them, usually in a group setting, to help narrow down which design decisions. And throughout the process, it's very interdisciplinary. It's very user focused. So just because you have the user research already, it's also important to keep testing your prototype along the way. Like when you're from medium fidelity, it's also really important to do usability testing. Usually, usability testing is interviewing users and seeing how they interact with the product to find pain points and things they struggle with in the app, and kind of asking their feedback and collecting metrics and to see what works and what doesn't, to keep iterating and improving on design. So it's a huge process of really understanding the users, understanding the stakeholders, understanding the market, market trends, what's trending out there in tech and anything else, and just taking in all these considerations to keep improving on a process, because there's something that can always be improved, and you have to be very proactive in making sure you understand like all sides of the problem you're trying to solve before working on a solution.
Okay. So Ali, it seems like that this is all. I don't
Okay,
really see
I
any
just I
more
just
questions.
ask one last question. For making long-term customer, which you will refer means for long-term customer.
For maintaining long-term customers, like, so the question is, in the UI UX field, while maintaining like what's best to like best practices to maintain long-term customers.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I guess like kind of just keep track of post-launch metrics, and doing A/B testing and seeing which features people use, and doing a lot of just like post-launch metrics and using ways to keep track of what features are used more, and kind of iterating upon that, and keep doing a lot of research, a lot of surveys, just keep keep collecting feedback. Like for websites like Facebook, like these design processes, like you always see Facebook evolving, like they never really stop improving. So just keep making sure that you're and like understanding the current trends and struggles people struggle with, and just keep having updates, and it would show that it would show the customer that the company cares, and also is on top of the trends to provide a product that is useful for the customer. So just make sure you really understand. Just keeping track of metrics after the product is launched to keep retaining your customers and making updates. Well, I see
Okay.
one more question. So Mohammed asks, how can you build a strong UX portfolio as a beginner? Also wanted to know how much projects should be mentioned in a portfolio. So when I was starting out, I kind of also wondered the same thing. So how many projects? I would say at least 2 projects. I know some people only have 1 project, but I would say at least 2 projects that you really feel comfortable talking about, like the whole process through. The projects I showed, it's also on my portfolio as well. I only have 3 design projects related on there, but it's grace-ling.com. But I showcased my Discord one, and feel free to look at that for reference as well. And as I guess like how portfolio, I would just look at other ones. Honestly, there's this website called Cofolios, or just search for portfolios, like UX portfolios online, and you'll see like curated lists of other portfolios out there, and just looking at these examples, because that's what I did when I was building my own portfolio. I looked at a lot of students' portfolios, design interns, and kind of design my portfolio that way based on like what they see. Like I always see like a project section, an about section, a resume section, and kind of like seeing what I see on there and combining it to have my own twist on there. And for projects, just 1 or 2 would work as well. At least 1 solid one where you can talk for 45 minutes, or at least like 40 minutes on.
Okay. I
Okay,
think
so we've got some questions on Facebook as well. Yanni Dodge, he wants to know that he's really interested in VR. What was some of the things you liked about working with that medium?
Okay. VR is very interesting. It's pretty trendy right now, with the popularity of remote working. I guess my experience was all self-taught. Actually, I actually had a VR lab that I got to go work in, but I didn't have any professors. I watched a lot of YouTube tutorials, and I worked in Unity and Unreal. So Unity and Unreal are 2 game engines most commonly used in game industry. They can make all types of games, including VR, and that's how I made my VR game. And there's this Unity website also has a lot of tutorials in VR. And I would just like look on YouTube. LinkedIn Learning also has some great tutorials, but how I personally learned from was just like searching on YouTube about the things I want to look at. And a YouTube channel I really like, it's called Vertis Learning Hub on YouTube. And I created my 3D models in Maya. Autodesk Maya, another 3D modeling software, imported them into Unreal and Unity, used the VR plugin, and worked with the Oculus Rift, and be able to test out my game and kind of go from there. And VR, since it's a new field, it's when you're making a product, it's really important to test it with users because there's a lot of constraints like motion sickness, lag, and making sure the user experience is pleasant by making sure you're not adding too many colors, too many lighting, a lot of different, too many like post-processing effects, too many animations. These take up the CPU and GPU a lot, which creates a very motion sickness and non-accessible interface. So biggest tip for VR is, for me, I just like learned online and I used the tools Maya for 3D modeling, Unreal, and Unity for developing the game and the VR models. And also making sure to do a lot of testing along the way because VR, it's such a unique experience for everyone. And it's really great to know early on of your design process what works and what doesn't work.
Okay, so we have another question from Apurva Desai. There is so much competition in the job market. How do I stand out as a designer?
Yeah, I feel the same exact way. So I felt like there's so much competition as well. As a designer, I would focus more about storytelling and personal branding. This is what worked for me. Might not work for everyone, but for me personally, I post a lot on LinkedIn. I post a lot of story times, my struggles, and just have create my content in a way that I'm just more than a designer. I'm also a person who went through struggles, but also love to share what I learned about it. And for my portfolio, I have a lot of side hustles as well. So if you have any fun hobbies like drawing or sports, highlight them as well. And I guess when you're doing interviews and reaching out to recruiters, they're human as well. And sometimes they'll put hobbies in their LinkedIn about page, like they like hiking. So you can, when you call them, you say, yeah, I saw you like hiking. What are your favorite trails around where you live? So making a genuine connection helps you stand out amongst a lot of people out there because I've witnessed a lot of people at career fairs talk to recruiters like they're not even human, like they're just like some way to get the job, but they're human. It's great to find what they have in common, like, and just like make a genuine connection. And you could do that. It will help you stand out a lot, but also you have a new friend from that experience. And also just like try to find things in common and treat them like a friend and try to relate with them. Yeah, so I guess networking and like a lot of kind of like change your mindset of thinking as a recruiter is just like a means to get by, but you can also think of them as like a friend or just another human being and a friend.
Okay, so Michelle wants to know what platforms did you use to start your business?
For a business, I actually have them here. I started with I started with stickers and I used Photoshop for drawing. I drew on my iPad Pro, my tablet over here. And I also used Photoshop before I got my tablet, and I just like did digital art, like any digital painting software. And I also used Illustrator to make my pins. This is Lychee Cat, Bunny Family, Dango Cat, and I would send these files to my manufacturer to make them into metal pins. And for marketing, I mostly use Instagram. And I have a Facebook page too for my business, and Etsy for good SEO to get more customers from all around the world. So I would leverage mostly community growth and digital art. And sometimes people use Procreate, CorelDRAW. There's a lot of digital art software. It's just one that works for you. And for marketing, I mostly just used Instagram and Etsy for that, and tabling at conventions to get more customers and meet more people and increase my network. So like software, also social media and events and outreach.
Okay, great. So Christian wants to know, what are your favorite design mediums or methods? Do you start out physical or do you do everything online?
Yeah, so it just depends on who I'm working with. But for me personally, I really like to have a strong understanding of the problem first and what exactly problem I'm trying to solve, and with backed by metrics and with research from scholarly articles. And then I like to draw with sketches. I have this in my portfolio as well. Feel free to take a look at my Discord case study. But essentially, I started off with like pencil sketches, or in the case I like to draw on my iPad, there's an app I like called Notability. And just draw digital sketches. Start by like drawing something very low fidelity, very easy to like change and stuff. And then later asking for feedback and trying to make these things in Figma. as medium fidelity, kind of just like white boxing and not adding any text or images, just like grayscale, no colors, no branding it, but just overall flow and testing that. And then kind of going from there and seeing what features work, what features don't work, and later adding pictures and color and branding and making it high fidelity. So I would say sketching is my favorite medium to start, and then going into Figma and kind of improving the fidelities of the design.
Okay. So Ali has another question. He wants to know how playing a good role in building relation or finding more clients.
Finding more clients. So I ask this question a lot. So for finding clients, my case is a bit different from other people. I find my clients because they reached out to me or my friend recommended me. So it's all word of mouth for me, or people just reaching out to me, but I share my work a lot. So that also helps as well. Another few tools people use is called Fiverr. I heard it's not that great though, because they don't pay that well. But another one is TopTal, where you have to be vetted to get in, and these are another platform, and Upwork. So Fiverr, TopTal, and Upwork are platforms you can sign up for to find clients and post your work on there as well. And also leveraging social media. I got clients from Instagram, from Discord communities, from game communities, from Slack, from Twitter, from LinkedIn, from Facebook groups. So just share your work on all these platforms, and people will reach out to you because there's no shortage of clients out there.
Perfect. So I think we should close the session now. It's been 5 minutes. So Grace, thank you for your time again. We really appreciate your time. I mean, leaders like you giving these services and letting us know that you are there for us. So it really means so much to us. And if you have any ending notes, you can go ahead and we'll then close the session.
Yeah,
Over
of
to
course.
you.
Thanks for having me. Feel free to connect with me on any of my social media platforms or email me. I forgot how my email,
Yeah.
but it's graceling08@gmail.com. It's also on my LinkedIn and portfolio site as well.
Okay. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone. Bye.